Good evening, everybody. Allow me, before beginning, to invite you all to a nearby room called Makom, where an exhibition of watercolors is being held. The artists are from Jerusalem, working in an art center called Hamifal. Excuse me for the translation, factory, the factory. The mic, okay. Anyhow, as small as the works are, the good they are. Having said that, I'll begin. This is my fifth and final lecture in this series of 5 lectures in New York under the title of Who? You can't hear me? You don't hear me? Do you hear me well? Do you hear me, more or less? Okay. Fine. Okay. Yes. The title of our lecture today is The Rise and the Fall of Jerusalem in Israeli Art. Before beginning, I must emphasize, this is not a lecture about Jerusalem. It's a lecture about the image of Jerusalem in Israeli art, which is something else. So it's not about social, political status of the capital of Israel, although you may infer some conclusions from the art that has been done there. I'm starting with this 1997 oil painting by the late Michael Sgan Cohen, who was born in 1944 and died in 1990. So this is one of his latest works. One must know Hebrew in order to understand this work. Shalom, Nati. Because as you can see, this is a diptych, right? And in the two paintings, there is a close-up, 2 close-ups of the map of Jerusalem, a naive, a childish map of Jerusalem. The way we may remember, when I say we, I mean I belong more or less to the same generation as Michael Sgan Cohen. And I remember it from elementary school. We used to have these naive maps of Eretz Israel, with these colors. And he magnifies the 2 maps, where in the right panel, in the middle of the panel, he writes Jerusalem, Yerushalayim in Hebrew, more or less where Yerushalayim is, okay? Somewhere, so in the very center of the painting, okay? Here, in the very center of this magnified map, he writes Tel Aviv. Now, he creates a further makeup of the title of the cities, okay? Now he enlarges it so that we are left with the 3 letters only. Shin, Lam, Yerushalayim. Shin, Lamed, Yud. Shin, Lamed, Yud. In Hebrew, you read it, Sheli, mine, okay? Whereas from the Tel Aviv, he takes the Lamed and the Aleph from the middle, so we read Lo, okay? So no to Tel Aviv. You hear it? No to Tel Aviv, and yes, Sheli to Jerusalem. Moreover, more than that, if you look well, you see that the 3 last letters of the small Yerushalayim, where the C begins, they are in white. In Hebrew, you will read it Layam, to the sea, okay? Layam. Yerushalayim, Layam. Layam means to the sea, okay? It's a white one. Jerusalem doesn't have a sea, okay? But the Yam of Yerushalayim, the Sea of Jerusalem, metaphorically, is very spiritual, it's white. On the contrary, the 3 last letters of Tel Aviv leave us with Bet Yud Bet, which reads Biv. Biv. Biv is sewage, all right? So, Tel Aviv, excrements are being flown to the sea, So I start with this painting because it represents an enormous rivalry between the 2 cities. the kind of rivalry that you may find between Moscow and St. Petersburg, between Rome and Florence, okay? I'm not sure about New York and San Francisco.
Jersey.
Whatever. Anyhow, historically, culturally speaking, we are talking about, and I'm not joking, we are talking about a serious subject, a serious motive that you can even call a cultural war between the two cities, representing two different mentalities, two contradicting mentalities. Jerusalem is on the mountain, Tel Aviv is the seashore. Jerusalem is stone city, Tel Aviv is a dune sand city. Jerusalem is archaic, Tel Aviv is new, being established in 1909. And no history in Tel Aviv. I mean, no archaeology, no profound layers. And compare with the archaeological layers of Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, you had prophets, etc., the Bible, etc. You don't have it in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is looking west, seashore, towards progress and good life, etc. Jerusalem is enclosed within itself, many people in Tel Aviv hate Jerusalem. I know at least one person in this room who really hates Jerusalem, okay? Go out. And people in Jerusalem many of them will despise Tel Aviv as a shallow city, the city of, entertainment and no depth city, okay? But there is a lot of hypocrisy here because all these Tel Avivians that hate Jerusalem, they will talk very highly. Okay? Let's put Jerusalem above all our joys. Yes, and we'll defend, not splitting Jerusalem politically. Don't retreat from Jerusalem. God forbid. How would Jerusalem our capital? At the same time, they're hating it. So, and where it's true also the hypocrisy about Jerusalemites that would go to Tel Aviv to see art and to see good theater and whatever. So now, after such an introduction, we may begin our tour, our historical tour, about the rise and fall of the image of Jerusalem in Israeli art. Well, that's Jerusalem, always present and past. You can't look at Jerusalem without looking at its past. In this case, about this photograph that was taken sometimes in the 70s, 1970s, it's a postcard, right? Yeah. The top part of it is a watercolor originally, which was printed as an etching, done at, 1839 by David Roberts, okay? A Scott painter. Originally, he was a writer and a musician and set designer. He made his career at beginning as a set designer, moving to London in 1922, and then graduating the Royal Academy. Again, he discovered himself as not only as a serious painter, but as an Orientalist. Between 1838 and 1840, he went to Palestine and painted all the possible landscapes there of the holy places, publishing the most popular book, still in these days, still being sold, the Holy Land, okay, of his picture. So, well, you see this picture above. I'll show you another of his paintings, David Roberts, of Jerusalem, in order to introduce to you what I would call the Christian sublime view of Jerusalem. And I emphasize Christian and I emphasize sublime. It's a formula, okay, which proved itself in at least scores of cases, if not much more than that, okay? Done generally by painters who would make what's so-called La Grande Tour, the big tour, to the Orient, following Napoleon's conquering of the Middle East, together with adventurers, with the authors, etc., etc. The painters and some of the others, amateur painters, obeyed the same formula. And the formula goes like that. Part 1, you have here, you are on Mount of Olives. Mount of Olives is where Messiah will arrive at the end of history, as promised by Prophet Zechariah. I quote, "Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." Later on, it mentions the Mount of Olives. Okay, we're supposed to split. Okay, so the gaze is from east to west. On the slopes, or the very end of the mountain, overlooking the other side, you will find permanently some indigenous natives, Arabs in exotic outfits. Okay, this is one part. Then you have the dividing zone, the Kidron Valley, which will vary in depth and in width from one particular, but always in unreal proportions, because the dividing zone must be such that it really divides, like a hurdle, like an obstacle that prevents you from getting to the third part of the formula, which is the unattained Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the dreamlike Jerusalem, the far Jerusalem, the foggy Jerusalem, the spiritual Jerusalem, the immaterial Jerusalem, the dreamlike Jerusalem. All right? So 1, 2, you see even in this dividing zone some mysterious smoke, some rituals going on. Nobody knows what exactly. You have to go over it in order to get there, but no one will get there. It's a dream. We're talking about a utopian view of the temple of the end of, because we're talking about the end of history, right? From here to there. This formula, for instance, a work from 1850 by another Englishman, Andrew Melrose, where you can follow the same principle. Mount of Olives, the exotic Arabs, dividing zone, this time with a lot of white, kind of a fog, smoke, no one knows. And then you see the immaterial Jerusalem, all white, all far, never to be reached. Or even another one, this time by I didn't pick it to prove my case. It's there, it's obvious. This is the formula. Every painter that wanted to paint Jerusalem would climb Mount of Olives and repeat this principle. This time the truth is that we are on Mount Scopus, nearby, okay? But still on the east side, the Mount of Olives will start here, okay? The Arabs come towards us together with some Christian Orthodox monk, the dividing zone, and this half abstract Jerusalem as if disappearing into the sky. In opposition to the Christian sublime view of, or depiction or representation of Jerusalem, you have the Jewish representation. We're talking again the end of 19th century, maximum beginning of 20th century, okay? Now, totally different conception, totally different formula, okay? Well, the truth is you're looking on a map of a Jewish guide to the holy places, meaning to tombs of righteous and prophets, okay? It's a tomb of Yosef and Absalom, the King David tomb, etc., etc., Zechariah tomb, Rabbi Meir Balanes in Tiberias, etc., all of them, all these tours of the Jews that I'm aimed at tombs of prophets and kings, etc., etc. Now, it's around. Ignore the sacrifice of Isaac, that you have here. This is another great lecture that you will not hear from me. Maybe next year the same time, every Wednesday, 7 o'clock. Yes. Look at this. This is the Jewish formula, which I would call the icon of Jerusalem. It appeared on hundreds, if I was talking before about scores of cases with the Christian Sublime, now I'm talking about hundreds of cases in prints, on objects, on you'll see immediately, yeah, the same kind of medieval conceptual, pre-perspective one, okay? As if history of art never reached. We're talking about a naive kind of outsiders kind of art. In this case, we're talking about a very important artist who came from Tehran, from Iran, was born 1860, died in Jerusalem sometimes around 1930. He started in Sfat, and then following the earthquake, there was a terrible earthquake in Sfat in 1837, he moved to Jerusalem together with many other print houses and artists that were working in Sfat of those days. Anyhow, his name is Yitzchak ben Moshe, son of Moshe, Mizrahi Shah. Shah, S-H-A-H. Shah, okay? He was working mainly painting on glass, and some prints as well. Now look at this icon of Jerusalem. So here you have two-dimensional view of the Wailing Wall. Well, the look is from west. This time we are looking from west to east, towards east. We're looking, the gaze is from more or less the Jewish quarter, okay? So here's the Jewish quarter. We look towards the Mountain of Olives, which we'll see in a minute, okay? Not in this case. On the top of the Wailing Wall, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, either cypress tree or cedar trees. It's important because cedar, and historians vary in their interpretation. Some say cypress, and those who say cedar remember that the king of Tyre, Hiram, provided the cedar trees to Solomon for his temple. So it's significant because we are looking at a wall of the temple, okay, outside, of course. I can solve the riddle of either cypress or cedar by going again back to Zechariah book and read there the verse, "Wail, O cypress, for the cedar has fallen." So you have the two of them together in one quotation in Zechariah. So you are allowed to see both of them at the same time. Now, on the left side is a temple place, meaning the Dome of the Rock. Okay, the Dome of the Rock. On this side, you have the Al-Aqsa mosque, representing what is called in Hebrew Midrash Shlomo, meaning the palace that Solomon built for himself. So you have the Solomon, you have the temple, and you have the Wailing Wall. Now, the icon, according to historians, to leading historians, the idea of this icon of Jerusalem was invented in 1837, the year of the earthquake, by the way, by a man called Rabbi Yehosef Schwarz, a German Jew, who came as a tourist to Palestine and published a book called The Crop of the Earth, Tvuat Haaretz, okay, where he designed this picture, where you can see the Wailing Wall, the cedar, cypresses, the temple, the mountain, etc., yeah, the palace here, and as I promised, the Mount of Olives in the background, far away, okay, where you can detect few buildings which have to do with so-called Huldah tomb. Huldah was a prophet, a she prophet, okay, where you open the Book of Chronicles, as I did, preparing this lecture, you'll see that she was prophesying the destruction of the temple. Okay? So you have, I mean, all this icon of Jerusalem is about destruction. Okay? It's about the mourning of the destroyed temple and destroyed Jerusalem, of course, with the hope of rebuilding it in the future. Now, this icon of Jerusalem, as I said, before, I disagree with the historians that refer to Joseph Schwarz, 1837, as the inventor of the icon. Because if you look at this, for example, at this map of the tombs, the holy tombs of Palestine, this design was done in 1722 in Italy by Rabbi Shmuel ben Ishai. And you can already see, okay, the stones of the Wailing Wall, this time 4 trees, 1, 2, okay? So you have the whole principles, the whole formula already in beginning of 18th century. So it's very old. It's much older than Rabbi Joseph Schwarz, who took it from former maps of Jewish tourings. Unfortunately, pictures here become, I don't know how to magnify it. I always have the same problem. No, okay. For this, well, thank you, Liel. This is a Liel without whom I cannot move. Yeah. Well, you're looking at a so-called micrography. It was done around 1900 by 1899. Rabbi Shmuel Schulman. Micrography is where every line here is consisted of words. Okay, it's text, all text. All this picture is every line, every tiny line is a text, is words. Okay, again the same principles as we said. This Rabbi Yanover, whose first name is Simcha, Rabbi Simcha Yanover, 1900 approximately, we don't know the exact dates because they never signed. They were not professional artists. They were amateur artists, naive that created, objects for rituals, Jewish rituals. So this Elijah cup for the Seder, okay, for Passover dinner, okay, again, it's being inscribed with the same, this time 2 trees, okay. Even, you see this stamp ring, okay, again, hundreds of cases. So there you have the 2 opposing, East, West, Christian, Jewish, okay, Messiah, destruction, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Then comes Zionism, okay, where when Ephraim Moshe Lilin, I might show, maybe I showed it already, or something very similar to it. Ephraim Moshe Lilin, a Zionist painter, the leading Zionist painter, when I say Zionist painter, I'm referring to those artists who worked for the Zionist movement, etc., in the service of the Zionist officers, etc. He designed it in 1902 as an illustration for a poem by Morris Rosenfeld called The Jewish May, referring to May as springtime. Okay, and I read you a few words from originally in Yiddish, by the way, but the English translation goes like that: "Gone that dream so fair and fleeting, yet behold, thou dreamst anew. Heart, a new May gives thee greetings from afar. Dost hear it, Jew? Dost hear it, Jew? Yea, once more your flocks shall tend. Ye shall live and live forever. Happy lives that knows no end. No more wandering, no more sadness. Peace shall be your lot, and still hero hearts shall throb with gladness." Okay, so we are talking about a promise, a utopian view of an idyllic Jerusalem, a transcendental Jerusalem. Jerusalem doesn't exist, and where Lillian had not yet visited when he did this in 1902. When he did come to Jerusalem, 1906, to be one of the founders of Bezalel Art School, my first lecture here, okay, he went around with his camera, okay, and he took photos of landscapes around Palestine, especially places, holy places, of course. And then he went back to Berlin to make an etching after the photograph. So you look at it and you say, rightly you say, well, this is the Christian sublime view, right? Right you are, yes. Exactly the same spot, Mount of Olives, etc., etc., etc. But there are slight, small, tiny additions which are significant. For instance, I know the place very well because today all the tourists come there, and even there is a camel named Shushu that my daughter, when she was very small, liked to ride on it. So I spent quite time in here. And I know, for instance, that this well doesn't exist. Okay? But so he added a well. There's another one here, but this one is more meaningful because it's in one line with the temple. Now think of the concept or the term living water. Living water, which is a metaphor for the Torah, you know, Maim Chaim. Okay? So as if Lillian kind of arranged an underground, you know, tunnel to reach the unreachable, okay? Also, he added these olive trees don't exist there, and I can tell you, I've seen so many. You saw some of the landscape. You didn't see one tree, but he added the olive trees that again, when you read Zechariah, who is very important for our lecture today, he envisions the menorah together with two olive trees. So, and talking about the miracle of Mount of Olives. So based on this, yeah, Lillian adds this row of olive trees also to function as a further blockage towards the reaching of the. Also, don't forget the tents. The tents represent the natives, the Arabs, right? The Bedouins. But at the same time, they represent the wandering people, okay? The Jewish people is a wandering people. You have the tents. So there are little hints that make this etching not just a copy of the Christian conception. Still, this conception, the Christian conception, was holding strong in Israeli art. As you can see, for instance, from this painting, oil painting from 1943, I jumped ahead 40 years to Ludwig Blum, who arrived from Czechoslovakia, from Brno, in 1923. And he was fantastic realist. And he made thousands of paintings very quickly, fast paintings of realist paintings of the views of Palestine, and sold them all over the world, including in New York. So you see the way he painted Jerusalem. So you have the indigenous, you have the dividing, and you have the far away, the Jerusalem, the unattained Jerusalem. But one should not forget the Bezalel Art School that started, as we said, in 1906, producing carpets with images of Jerusalem, among others, where Jerusalem is represented by the two quintessential sites. Tower of David, okay, speaking about renewal of the kingdom of David, you know, and the temple place, the Dome of the Rock. So the two of them together with the menorah in the middle, you get the national depiction of Jerusalem, of the Zionist utopia Jerusalem. Another case is the case of the leading teacher of Bezalel, Ze'ev Rabban, who painted this miniature. It's a miniature, it's this size. Okay, it's hanging in my house. He did it in 1922. Okay, this is the expulsion from Eden, of course. Okay, very much Renaissance, Masaccio. Those of you who know something about history of art will find a lot of Renaissance here. But also Syrian. But I don't want to get into it. I want to point at the wall around Eden, Garden of Eden, which is almost a copy of the walls of Jerusalem, of the old city. Meaning, Jerusalem is Eden. Eden is Jerusalem, all right? Or if you have this one, again by Rabban from 1930, to remind you, in 1929 there were the riots, the pogroms starting in Jerusalem near the Wailing Wall because of some dispute between Jews and Arabs about the putting or not putting, adding some furniture there. And it spread to Hebron and Tzfat and killing 139 Jews and injuring almost 400 of them. Okay, it was a terrible tragedy, very well remembered in the history of Israel, and some will pinpoint it as the beginning of the bloody conflict between the Jews and Arabs. Anyhow, very shortly afterwards, Rabban created this picture of Jerusalem. Now you look at it, no pogrom, no history, silence, okay, empty, no humans, okay, above history, above time, okay. You look, the gaze is from Solomon's temple, because you have the two pillars and the lions of Solomon, okay. In the middle, you have the cypress cedar one, okay, as if dividing the picture into two, okay, leading your eyes from the Jewish quarter, this is the Churba, okay, Rabbi Yehuda Hasid synagogue, towards the final point of disappearance of the perspective, which is of course the temple place. So you have here an example of how to idealize Jerusalem, okay, in the Bezalel works. Another Bezalel artist teacher was Aharon Shaul Shur, who arrived in 1913 from Vienna. Okay, he was the head of the enamel department. Now he paints, 1923, he painted this painting. Again, from the Jewish quarter, you have here this dark ruin, okay, present, the now and the here, okay, and then your eyes hover over the roofs of the domes and other roofs of Jerusalem, so as to get to this blurred, this faded view of the holy place, the holy of the holies, the temple place, with this slant in the middle of the palm tree, okay? Palm tree in Hebrew, Tamar. Tamar, an acronym of Torat Moshe Rabbeinu, the Bible, the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses. So it's not just a tree, okay? This is a spiritual tree, okay? And so you can compare it, by the way, with a photograph that was taken by Lillian, 1910. You see, the same spot. But this time, the tree is straight, all right? As if Aaron Shaul Shur bended the tree so as to leave more room to the desired view of the unreachable temple. Okay, modernism arrived to Israel, Palestine, okay? To Eretz Israel, as we solved this problem. Beginning in 1919, with the so-called beginning of the third aliyah, third wave of immigration, bringing more and more modernists to Jerusalem, and who immediately moved to Tel Aviv, of course, because attraction. Tel Aviv is where art is, and Jerusalem is being ruled by the Bezalel, conservative view of Boris Shas, the founder of Bezalel. One of the the artists that arrived this time from Chernovitz, Romania, is Reuven Rubin. very popular here in New York among Jewish collectors. Between 26 to 28, he painted repeatedly the view of Jerusalem. And in all of his paintings, you see the Jerusalem is surrounded as if the old city is a secret hidden behind the wall. Okay, it's something that, of course, Gideon, the legendary bluish kind of of the temple, but this is the main, of course, main point of view. And you always look around the wall as if you don't know what expects you beyond the wall. You have the Silwan neighborhood. My house today is here, okay, above Silwan. And here you have the first building of the university, Jerusalem, the Hebrew University, which was inaugurated in 1925. At this time, they had only one building, the Faculty of Law, okay? So, and behind it is the Mount Scopus, of course. So this is 26. This is 27. You see another case of Rubin and the secret of Jerusalem guarded, behind the dark, closed, heavy walls. This time, Rubin, I don't know where he took it from, suddenly erects this mysterious building, which should be something like the Dome of the Rock, but it doesn't look like the Dome of the Rock, and I have no explanation to this mysterious building. Another one, you see, again, always Rubin, the same principle, the same Jerusalem. If you had a black wall, kind of a secret, a bit threatening, a bit, unknown, then you have, in 1926, Nahum Gutman, another modernist. I'm talking about the leading modernist of Palestine, the Jewish art in 1920s. He did it in 1926. This is Tower of David. Now look, this is the real life. There's light, movement, life goes on. Look what happened. It's crazy. This black, it looks like a sexual erection, okay? Intimidating, okay? Why should it be? No, I mean, it's not, it's Tower of David after all. It's ours after all, right? Ours, yeah? But still, you have this ambivalence concerning the representation of Jerusalem. In 1923, I mean, Gutman, with a black Tower of David, came back to Israel in 1925 after 5 years in Europe. Before that, he studied in Bezalel, etc., etc. In 1923, there arrived, parallel to Rubin, from Kiev, this time Ukraine, Yosef Zaritsky. Well, look at this is from 24. One of his typical early watercolors of Jerusalem. You will not see, in principle, you will not see any holy site, no holy place, no temple, no something is substituting the temple. This is Jaffa Road. You can see the carriage here, you can see a camel there. What interests Yosef Zaritsky is the rhythm of colors, the touch of the brush, transparency of colors, the game between the white and the opaque, the transparent, the opaque, etc. And when he painted Jerusalem's panorama, never ever, I mean, in scores of cases of watercolors, because that time, those years he painted watercolors, you will not, how do we go about it, for God's sake? How do we go? Why when I do it, it doesn't work? Okay. Show me your fingers. Okay. It's a bad reproduction, terrible reproduction. But what I want to show is that the point is you don't see the Dome of the Rock. So let me tell you something. Being a Jerusalemite, I was born in Tel Aviv, but for the last 53 years I'm in Jerusalem. I know that there is no possibility to look at Jerusalem from afar to the panorama without seeing very clearly, very obviously the Dome of the Rock. It's there with its golden dome. It's not here, okay? It's not, okay, it's, oh my God. It's not there. I mean there. I mean there. Say here. Yeah. Yeah. Only once in 28, when he underwent short period of Kabbalah mysticism, yeah, he suddenly painted this strange aquarelle of Jerusalem. Look what he did here. Crazy. Crazy. Irrational. Surrealistic. Suddenly, this, amplifying, this magnifying of the Dome of the Rock in green. Let me add that the dome was gilded in 1946. Before that, it was black, grayish black. Okay, so this is why it doesn't even hints at gold. Okay, and then after this introduction about Yosef Zariski, who ignores the national, romantic, historical, let alone religious, because he's into art, pure valeur, pure art values, okay? Suddenly in 1929, he paints this painting, this watercolor. And suddenly an eagle flies over the black dome, okay, as I told you, okay? What happened? Well, what happened? What happened. The pogroms that I was talking before, okay, that erupted in 1929, following which the nationalist, super nationalist poet, right wing of course, Uri Zvi Greenberg, wrote a poem, published a poem in the daily, I think it was Davar, daily newspaper, a poem called I Shall Tell to a Child's Ears, באוזני ילד אספרה, okay? And it goes like that. My terrible translation. Messiah did not arrive. He hovered like an eagle over the bloody abyss. Day and night I heard the sound of its wings. Maybe it was him who climbed as an eagle from Kidron River, made a circle around the Temple Mount and wept. I saw him making a circle and I heard his crying, a crying bird. I then said, crying bird, isn't it the loss of hope, the departure circle, the end? Israel's Messiah in the shape of a bird departing from the Temple Mount, and the eagle terminated its circle and flew towards the sea. He flew without wing sound, and it was all so dark. This is the part of the poem which obviously was an inspiration for this painting, after which, and due to the pogroms, Mr. Zariski and Geveret Sonia, his wife, the dentist, left Jerusalem for good, moved to Tel Aviv, to Rehov Hagalil 2, number 2, which is today Mapo Street, near Ben Yehuda Street. No, what used to be north of Tel Aviv. Now it's very central. Okay, so the effect of the pogroms on the representation of Jerusalem in Israeli, or at that time, Eretz Israeli art was heavy, was terrible, was tragic. This is another Nachum Gutman view. You see of Jerusalem. I have it only in black and white. So, but you can see that he blackened the Wailing Wall, because it all started in the Wailing Wall. I told you with there was this dispute. Okay, or if I show you 1930, before it was the 29. Nachum Gutman. This one is an etching from 1930 by Hermann Struck, a German, very famous among the artists of that time in Germany, because he was a great teacher of print, and many Chagall and the expressionists, German expressionists, studied with him. So you see a view of Jerusalem. He came to Jerusalem to Palestine in 22. In 30, he draws this drawing of Jerusalem, and he blackens the Wailing Wall. By now, I won't be able to finish even half of my lecture. How long do I have? Be generous. 40? 40. Sorry. It's a great subject, actually. At that time already, bye. At that time, you're great as well. This is your friend? Okay. At that time, already, 1929, 1930, there are in Jerusalem some artists who came, Jewish artists who came from Austria, from Vienna. One of them is Leopold Krakauer. Okay, you can already see what I'm now getting into, a new conception of Jerusalem's representation. Not east, not west, but this time outskirts of Jerusalem, from the point of view, in this case, Valley of Kidron, which is a valley of tombs, okay? Very tragic, very nocturnal, okay? Night, morning, or it's a charcoal, of course. Done in 1926. He arrived to Israel, to Palestine in 1924. Another view, again, black, night, death, Absalom tomb, okay? Before him, there arrived already in 1912 Anna Tycho from Vienna to become a very prominent drawing artist in Israel. This.
Can we look at it 1 more minute?
What again? The previous one. For you. May I go on? Thank you. This is still a Leopold Krakauer. You see that even when daylight, it was the Judea desert. It was the arid, dry, deadly landscape of the outskirts of Jerusalem. You won't see the holy places. You won't see the inside of the even in the walls of the city. On the contrary, you see the skull here, or the thorns, which have to do with Jesus' crown of thorns, meaning sacrifice, etc. A deadly view of Jerusalem. I mentioned Anna Tycho. Yeah, this is a typical work of her from 1940. The Austrian painters, together with the Yeckes, those who came from Germany, between 33 to 39, is the main wave of Aliyah, of immigration from Germany. They invented or developed, this different formula of Jerusalem, which means look at Jerusalem from its outskirts. And the outskirts are always desert, at most the hills of Judea, so-called Harei Yehuda, the mountains of Judea, Judea mountains, mostly desert. This is from 43. You see, looking at Jerusalem from here, with all its connotations. You know, one day I went there's a Tycho house in Jerusalem, where, among other things, her library is being kept. And I went over her library. I looked at the books that she read, and I found inspirations in essays that she read, in poems concerning the deadly desert of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is on the verge of a desert, Just behind the mountain of olives and the Scopus, there's a vast desert. So this neighboring landscape is the one that now rules the new formula. For example, with Mordechai Ardon arrives from Berlin, although he was born in Poland, arriving in 33, he paints this in 1934. Again, the terraces of the Judea mountains, always arid, always empty, always not living. This is an interesting one. Ardon painted this work of the Kidron Valley in 1942. Well, you see the stormy night, always, death, tomb, all right? Originally, you're looking at a painting of a stormy sea where people are drowning from the illegal ship named Struma that drowned in 1942, shortly before the painting. Ardon painted the people drowning, okay, in the stormy sea. Then he didn't like his painting. He erased it or covered it with another painting, this one. So what you see here is the remnants of the stormy sea, okay? X-ray show here standing a skeleton in the original painting, okay? So, but again, you see, outskirts, valley of the tombs, etc., etc. Another one who came from Germany, also born in Poland, in shtetl named Zherkov, was Jakob Steinhardt, or Jakob Steinhardt. Yeah. He came from Berlin in 1933. The way he drew Jerusalem was mainly in woodcuts, not only, but mainly in woodcuts, where he would go from one neighborhood to another and represent it as a shtetl, as like the Zherkov of his childhood, like the East European village. Okay, here you are in Mea Shearim, this ultra-religious neighborhood of Jerusalem. Very shadowy. Again, always night time. This is Jerusalem of night, okay? Long shadows, some intimidating atmosphere around here. Or if you see another case, you see, well, because it's dark, because we're talking about night, okay, because we're talking about shadows, the people that he prefers as the inhabitants of Jerusalem are blind beggars. They don't see, they see black, okay? Like in this case from 38, or this case of 43, okay? So that's the Jewish-German formula of Jerusalem. All right, 48, the old city falls, or Eastern Jerusalem falls to the hands of the Arab Legion, the Jordanians, okay? This is a picture, photo from 48, okay? From now on, then, Israeli artists, now there is Israel, okay? 48, Israel was created, declared. They don't have the view that they used to paint in the past. So from now on until 67, when East Jerusalem will be reconquered, hardly Tel Aviv artists, and we're talking about Tel Aviv as the main center of artists, hardly Jerusalem will be painted at all. Let alone the old Jerusalem. I mean, they don't see it. It doesn't. People, artists at that time had to see what they paint. Okay, so those in Jerusalem that painted were the Yekes, the German Jews, for whom Jerusalem was a center. Most of the German Jews, for sure, the artists were centered in Jerusalem. Okay, so this was done, for instance, in 1970 by Anna Ticho. So she went on, you see, the outskirts, the arid, the desert, etc., etc. But otherwise, there's only one very important painting of Jerusalem. Very, very important. So important, the two leading museums in Israel, Tel Aviv Museum and Jerusalem's Israel Museum, not only were competing on it, but bought it together, half and half. And this is this famous painting called, ignore the screen, the red and green up there. It's called, as it says, Rehov Agrippas. Well, the Rehov Agrippas is a real sign of Jerusalem, old sign that Aryeh Aroch bought from the municipality together with other signs of the streets. The painting was done in 63, okay, when Aroch was serving as an ambassador, Israeli ambassador in Stockholm, in Sweden, okay? So there he sits in Sweden, in Stockholm, and he longs to the days he was a pupil, student in Bezalel, assisting Yaakov Eisenberg, the head of the ceramic department, to create ceramic street signs for Tel Aviv. And as an homage for his past in Bezalel, Jerusalem, he puts this Rehov Agrippa Street, a street that is still there today. Okay. At the same time, he remembers with a lot of warmth his childhood in Kharkov. Okay, and that's the door, and what I'm telling you is from his mouth, okay? That's the door of the apartment of Aryeh Aroch's parents, childhood, okay, where he grew as a child, okay? And here you have some scribbling like a childish, very infantile scribblings, maybe from his something in the style that you would do as a really small child. So what I'm showing you here is a wandering Jew, a painter who wanders in his imagination, okay? And Jerusalem is composed of a memory intermingled with memories of other places, okay? Today it's hanging in Israel Museum collection, but it also belongs to Tel Aviv Museum. Now, my friend, please enlarge, and because it's bigger, one is bigger. That's the moment, of course, of entry of the generals to the old city, 67. General Dayan, Reuben Rubin, Yitzhak Rabin, and Moshe Dayan, of course. Well, if you remember anything from my lectures, you would remember that 67 was followed, the war, with an enormous, tremendous wave of euphoria in Israel at large and also among artists. So that, for instance, if I show you this 67 painting by Nahum Gutman, you remember the Tower of David, the black? Now look at this Jerusalem. Do you see any Arabs here? Do you see any Arab houses here? Hardly. Very far in the middle. Jerusalem is empty, okay? Then you have the Lion of Judea in the sky. You have the blessing of the Kohanim, or the priests. In this blessed Jerusalem with, again, this legendary bluish, the style that Reuben Rubin did in 20s, and the light that shines from the Mount Scopus, from the university place, okay, over the city. This is just one example. There are so many, most of them are not very successful, of this euphoric, enthusiastic pictures of victory following the war. You remember this picture from 67 by Ardon, a middle piece of a triptych, homage to Jerusalem with the letters of Jacob, flying over. You see, you don't see it well, but this is you don't see it well. This is the wall of Jerusalem down there, as if expecting the angels to come down through the ladder. Or you remember this Moshe Kastel with hundreds of Israeli soldiers crowding near the Wailing Wall with Rabin here and Moshe Dayan there, and the name of the painting is a Wall of Glory, okay? And this one you don't know. It hangs. It's a huge painting. If you ask me, a terrible one. Yeah, done by Reuben Rubin in '67. Okay, hanging in the Knesset, in the Israeli Parliament. Very large, very large. Now, look at it well. Well, this is the kind, remember, always, Jerusalem aloof, transcendental, beyond, fading, okay, foggy, as according to the laws that we remember. But look at the gate here. And you see the gate is open. Okay. Why do I emphasize it? Because if you look at the same view that was done by Reuben Rubin, in 48, right after the fall of Jerusalem, you see, the gate is closed. So, and Jerusalem here is more concrete, okay, than in comparison to the abstract, half abstract Jerusalem of 60, of this Jerusalem, the dreamy Jerusalem of 67. This was done by Naftali Bezer. It's a name that I repeated in my lectures here. But he did it in 75. He called it, it's a large work, called the Lion Gate, where the Lion Gate is one of the gates of Jerusalem through which the IDF, the Israeli army, penetrated the old city. Sha'ar Arayot, you know. And he calls it Sha'ar Arayot, the gate of the lion. Now, the Israeli hero soldiers flying here, rightfully fire. He has wings, you know. The ladder here will bring ladder, aliyah. Aliyah means ascending, but also aliyah, coming to Israel, you know, the ship, the new immigrant. The Lion of Judea is waiting here with the two candles lit, and then, of course, the tree of the Sabra tree, or bush, or whatever, of the Israeli born. All of them are celebrating, although it's 76. It's after the Yom Kippur War, okay? Because it's 73. But here you have his mother, Naphtali Bezen's mother, with candlesticks turned upside down, those that she would light every Friday, okay? With a scapegoat, the rooster, you know, the sacrifice, okay? With the Jews on the way to the chimney in Auschwitz, okay? So it's a mixture of hilarious Jerusalem, okay, of 67, and the memory of the tragedy, the Jewish tragedy from the 40s. From now on, till the rest of, until my time is over in this lecture, we are beginning to follow the fall of Jerusalem in Israeli art. The fall of the image of Jerusalem in Israeli art. Because now, after this wave of enthusiasm, Israeli artists, whom you already know, should know, according to my lecture, have been tending towards left, but becoming very critical of what is going on, the politics around Jerusalem, about the occupied territories, etc., etc. But now in 1970, for example, Rafi Lavi, an important teacher at the college art school in Tel Aviv, in Herzliya at the time, creates this collage where he takes this sign of, you know, directing the tourists, Israeli tourists who flock in the thousands, you know, towards Rakel Tomb near Bethlehem, and sticks it, glues it, so as to hide the other view, the other side, the other important side of the Dome of the Rock, so as to mock at that, you know, mode, this trend of streaming of thousands every Saturday to all these places now that were conquered, and we can. And Israeli artists didn't take part in this celebration. For instance, 1980, Menashe Kadishman, who many of you are familiar with his work, you know, did this work with took the picture of the Wailing Wall just as an excuse for a game with paints. Just paints, you know, art for art's sake, not caring for the significance, the religious significance of the wall. Jerusalem of the 1970s and the 80s and the 90s has become secular Jerusalem in Israeli art. No more the religious, no more the national, no more the heroic, no more the romantic city. For instance, this work that was done in 1994 by Lilian Klapisch, a great painter who came from France. This is called Rehov Radak Street, okay? In the middle of Jerusalem, in Rehavia neighborhood, okay? Seen from her window. So this is the kind of Jerusalem, the ordinary Jerusalem. No sign of transcendental Jerusalem. Oh, please, 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 this is important. This is done with 1990 by Israel Hirschberg. He came from the United States, from New York, and really led and still leading in a way the new wave of new realism in Israel. Okay, founding a school for art, and many, many realists came out of his school and his influence. So he, in 1990, goes up to the 11th floor of a tower in Jerusalem. Can you make it a little smaller? Yes. So that it will be more focused. And you see, and he looks from the tower, here is the Yehuda Street, he looks towards King George Street, very secular, very everyday, you know. By the way, if you're interested, my coffee house is right here. Okay? Okay. No, I think right here. Because this used to be the Knesset, the old Knesset building. Okay. So you see secular Jerusalem, and not only secular but also personalized Jerusalem. Before personalized, look at this Marek Kianai, Jerusalem, my painter, okay, from Polish origin. Yeah, it's a sunset over Jerusalem, but look, you don't see domes here. Not the Arab domes of the old city, neither of course the dome of the rock, but you see the Soros water system of the very secular, okay? Or if you take this, Shaul Schatz, you know Shaul Schatz. It's Michael Gideon, they showed together at 69, was it? They showed together an exhibition in Jerusalem. And he became Orthodox, very ultra-Orthodox, a Hasidic, yeah. And he paints his wife as against the landscape of Jerusalem. But let me tell you something. Where he used to live, when you stood there, believe me, and you looked at the landscape behind the wife, you would see very clearly the old city and the Dome of the Rock. Okay? You can't, I mean, it's there strongly. He erased it. Why did he erase it? Because according to the ultra-Orthodox, you're not allowed, Jew are not allowed to go into the temple place. So you don't have it in here. So, or used to be my neighbor in Abu Tor, yeah, Leon Engelsberg, yeah, was painting repeatedly in the 1970s the landscapes of Abu Tor neighborhood. No romantic religious Jerusalem. Or if you take this, Ivan Schwebel, an excellent painter who died some years ago. He was walking with his dog in the mountains of Jerusalem, and he got a heart attack, and he fell down, and he was not found, and he was eaten by, how do you say tanim? Jackals. This was painted in 1983. Okay, this is David, King David, and this is Uriah. David tempting Uriah to go to the army so he can get rid of him, so he can get his wife Bathsheba. Okay, the son is Artemis, a New York painter today. Okay, this is even Schwebel himself. But where does it take place? Where's the scene? This is Jaffa Street, Jaffa Road in Jerusalem. So this insistence of Israeli artists of the 70s and the 80s and 90s ignore the kind of Jerusalem that was in the focus of the paintings before. As I said, personalized as well. Personalized Jerusalem. You see, for instance, this is the Via Dolorosa, the road of suffering, where Jesus was walking with his cross. Now Moti Mizrahi, at the graduate of Bethsaida, 74. He just graduated. He was a student of mine. With his picture on his back and crutches because he's an invalid. He walks in the Via Dolorosa, and in another photograph of his, he photographs his leg with a chicken wings attached to the ankle, as if a sacrifice against the temple place, and also as an attribute. Those of you who know something about history of Greek art, this is an attribute of Hermes, the flying messenger of Zeus. So he can't fly, okay? So again, personalized. Or my good friend, the late Avram Ofek, who died in January 1990, was very ill terminally ill, when he painted this painting of his family sitting around the Last Supper near Mount Zion, near the Domitian church, and the building of the cenacle of the Last Supper. The attribute, the Last Supper, as if in this building on Mount Zion. And you see they're all bending now, they're all bowing, they're all collapsing. Yeah, and this is the last supper with the daughter who commits suicide in '86. She sits together with them with an acanthus tree, acanthus leaf attached to her, because acanthus symbolizes eternity and resurrection. Okay, so this last supper of Avram Ofek, again personalized, tragically personalized Jerusalem, or in this beautiful painting of his, the same series from 1989, shortly before he died. His family, they all walk on the Mount of Moriah, Mount Zion, where the temple is, temple place, towards the daughter in blue who plays the flute. She was playing, Ofrat was her name. She was playing the flute to visit her while Jerusalem is bowing or collapsing. If he added not in the right place, this church, the Russian church here, because it reminded him of a similar Russian church that one can see in the middle of Sofia. His birth, not birth, but he was raised in Sofia before arriving to Israel in 59. No, 49, in 49. Yeah. In case, those rare cases where Israeli artists of this time from 1997, done by Michael Sgan Cohen, with whom we started our tour. In those cases, that Israeli artists do refer to the sites, to the touristic, dramatic sites of Jerusalem. There is a politicization of the view. The Arab language, and the Dark Night again, and it's written here, Misgad David. Not Migdal David, which is the Tower of David, but Misgad David, the Mosque of David. Okay? So it's to emphasize the Arab. After all, it's not David. David is not here at all. No way. I mean, it's an Arab mosque. Okay? I think we'll be able to finish all in 2 minutes. I'm finishing. In 2008, the final work of a Bezalel graduate named Michal Rothschild was showing this work of, it was a video work, you see a still from it. It's her Jerusalem. And Jerusalem for her is the surveillance cameras. At that time, today, everywhere is the surveillance cameras, you know, but at that time, all of them were, or most of them were in the old city, surveying the Arab, you know, the streets, etc., etc. And this is the police, of course, police headquarters. So another way of politicization of Jerusalem. Or Lena Zeidel, who came from Russia, a young artist, okay, who painted in 2012. Again, huge, very large paintings with herds of wolves attacking Jerusalem, attacking the holy places, attacking everywhere. And you see that Jerusalem for her is a junkyard. So you understand why I'm talking about the rise and the fall of Jerusalem, because there's a deep, profound dislike of Jerusalem among contemporary Israeli artists. One of them, for instance, in 2012, is Eric Bukovza, who is a pharmacist who knows a lot about biochemistry in general, and he had a series called Chemical Jerusalem. Among the works there, among the works that you're going to see, two of them, yeah, is this painting of an optometrist, an eye check, okay, of Yerushalayim, the way we pronounce it in Hebrew, where the alayim may remind us of Elohim, okay? But the basic argument here, you don't see Jerusalem, you don't really see Jerusalem. You don't look well at Jerusalem. Look at Jerusalem with better eyes, with improved eyes, okay? Or in this painting of his, when the dividing wall, political dividing wall, it divides the Arab villages from the Palestinians, from the Jewish one, in Jerusalem and other places. In the middle of Jerusalem, one can see it. Yeah, he added he magnified these circles of, you know what Petri plates are? It's microbes that you can watch in a microscope, okay? So this is a sign of sickness, okay? This is sickness. And if you are not convinced about the sickness, come these two paintings of his that represent the chemical structure of the sicknesses of the illnesses of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is a sick place for Eric Bukovza, okay? Because many troubles occur there, you know. It's a trouble place, you know. It's not an easy place. For instance, take this work. This was shown at Israel Museum 1996. The picture is taken from the artist's studio before moving to Israel Museum. So ignore all these things here in the background. Just the name of the installation in Israel Museum was called Har Bayit, mountain house, meaning Har Bayit, temple place. Okay. Temple Mount. Yeah, okay. The right translation would be Temple Mount. Not Har Bayit. Mountain house. But you're right, you know, translation. Now, you have the two pillars of the temple, named Yachin and Boaz. According to tradition, Yachin and Boaz. Well, Yachin is the name of a factory for sour cucumbers, pickles, okay? So you have all these metal containers here, or the Yachin containers here, as a temple, pillars. Here you have the godly eye, the mystical eye, in the shape of a tambourine, okay, made of glass. Spectators were invited to throw stones at the eye and break it. And you see it's broken, okay? And underneath there was the stone, the holy rock, okay? According to the legend, Isaac was sacrificed there, Jacob was sleeping on it when he saw God, etc., etc. There are a lot of legends about it. But the stone, the shape of the stone, the shape is the original shape of the rock. But then the artist was Sigalit Landau, I forgot to say the name. She, by the way, had a video work of her shown at the MoMA years ago. When she's not that old. She reshaped or redesigned the rock with some scores of 50 or more, maybe much more, computer pads to which she injected microbes of a dying person, thus poisoning. I mean, there was a big scandal in the museum because she threatened to poison the museum's collection, okay? But just to give you an idea of how much aggression, how much antagonism, okay, was the idea of a temple, the nationalist idea of the temple, the religious idea of the temple, aroused in the heart of Sigalit Landau. This is I'm almost finishing. This painting, originally in black and white, was painted probably around 2010. We don't know exactly because it doesn't say. It was painted by the #1 political artist, painter in Israel, David Reed, whom I remember selling selling nuts on 14th Street, 1980. Okay, so he was here for a while. And you see, this is some Hasidic praying near the Wailing Wall. Up there it says Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, Jerusalem of gold. Well, there are many Israelis here, you know, they know what it means. Right? This is a name of very, very famous, very popular. So popular that some people refer to it as an anthem of Israel. Jerusalem of gold, written by Naomi Shemer, the beloved composer. Yeah. To which, Jerusalem of gold, transcendental, perfect, you know, gold. To which David Reed answers or responds with Yerushalayim Shelcha, excuse me, Jerusalem of Shit. The work was shown a few months ago, a year ago, okay, for you, at the opening, official opening, the grand opening of the Israeli Art Museum in Ramat Gan. Enormous, terrible scandal aroused when their mayor of Ramat Gan ordered to take off the work. As a protest, almost all the artists in the exhibition covered, please, cover the works with black sheets. The director woman of the museum, Svetlana, resigned, okay, in protest, and the museum closed down. It reopened just recently, very recently, a few weeks ago it was reopened, okay? So, Jerusalem of whatever, I give you the real sense of the status of Jerusalem in Israeli art of these days. So, the big question that I would like to finish with a question. What kind of Jerusalem we have in mind when we go out from this lecture? Are we thinking of the romantic, beautiful, dreamlike Jerusalem? Or we take into account the fact that the old city is terribly neglected for scores of years, and that Jerusalem, in spite of being the largest city with the largest population in Israel, is the poorest city in Israel? Is this the truth about Jerusalem? What is the real Jerusalem? I'll leave you to answer, and I thank you for all your presence and for coming here. And let me remind you of the exhibition here on the way out on the left side. The curator near.
Come visit. It's only contemporary art, seriously, from Jerusalem. So I didn't plan that, but
okay, Jerusalem is Jerusalem. So I'd like to thank also not only you for coming. I really learned to like you. I started with some intimidation. You know, you were strangers. I didn't know how. You didn't know what to do with me. I didn't know what to do with you. But now that I got accustomed, I'm a bit sad that it's ending. And I'd like to thank the JCC, Udi, the head of the arts department, and Liel, without whom nothing would happen here. Toda rabba. Thank you. Bye.
גדעון, תודה.
מאוד נהניתי. יופי. תודה שבאת, באמת תודה. Thank you.
You could have lectured about anything, but you have such a wonderful mind. And I could listen to you. Thank you.
תודה רבה.
ידעתי שתהיה הרצאה. I'll see you. It was great. I enjoyed it. It was
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your compliments.
I wish it would go on and on.
Well, life is interesting.
Life is interesting. Okay, we're gonna have a conversation. I'll see what you're going to
מעניין, נכון? זה נושא מעניין נורא. כן.
כשבאתי באה לירושלים, אנחנו ירושלמים, באוניברסיטה העברית, אז אתה שם, זה שווה, כל פעם שבאים, העיר משתנה, ככה...
אני גר שם, אני לא אתקיים. באתי אליה באהבה, והפכה למשהו שכבד קשה.
מילאת איתי, הייתה עכשיו בירושלים, בדצמבר, למחלקה שלי. יכול להיות שאתה מכיר אותה, מילת קייפמן, היא בייל. קלאסיקונים, הרבה יותר. היא הבת שלי, היא לא הדור שלנו. אבל...
כן, קשה. נוסעים לתל אביב, אתה מגיע לרמזור הראשון בירושלים, אתה מבין, אתה בפלנט אחר, פתאום אנשים מוזרים עוברים את הכביש, פתאום אתה מבין, זה מה קורה.
אבל זה, לקחו לנו את העיר.
זהו, החזרתי אותך לעבר קצת.
קצת, כן, נוסטלגיה.
להתראות, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
And I'm waiting for the book to come out.
Yeah.
go enjoy it. יופי. נו, זהו.